So what are the 3 to 5 things that people should be looking for when they're looking for like a solid study, or like to make an informed decision? What should they be doing?
Yeah, so good question. There's a lot of really mixed information out there, even within the science field.
Yes.
Like let's not um, kid ourselves here. There's a lot of different ways science can be manipulated,
Yes.
which is unfortunate. And there's the way that the world works now is such a consumerist monetary world that is a huge part of bias. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
hear about, oh, resveratrol is fantastic for you. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
However, when the studies first started coming out, typically it was funded by wineries,
Oh,
you know, and that's a huge bias. So that would be
yeah.
one of the really big things we want to look at is where is there potential bias?
Right.
And it says if you go and look at primary research articles or any type of research article you would get on PubMed, which is one of my favorite sites because it's all peer reviewed. There's another thing we should look for. It's all peer reviewed articles. It has to say on there somewhere in the article, typically it's at the very end, right after the conclusion, if there's a conflict of interest. So I was reading one the other day about, I think it was intermittent fasting, and it said the conflict of interest was that one of the authors for the article had actually written a book about the benefits of intermittent fasting.
Mm.
And so really it could be construed that she was trying to self-promote.
Right.
You know, so that's one thing to look for, what bias. And sometimes you have to do a bit of research, like who do they work for? We hear this a lot in pharmaceuticals, in agriculture, dairy industry, beef industry, just to name a
Yes.
few, in
Yeah.
terms, like especially in the US with the lobbyists and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we do have to be aware and do a little bit of digging to see, like, where is this information coming from? What potential benefits could be had by the individuals publishing. And hopefully it's just science is really their only motivating factor. They just want to learn more, and they want to share what they've learned. So that's a big one. We want to make sure it's peer reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Peer reviewed means that once the paper is ready to publish, whether it's a review, whether it's a regular like investigative article, whether it's an observational study, no matter what type of study it is, if they want to publish it, it should be, once it's submitted, before it's published, they send it off to other people that are experts in the same field and have them vet it out.
Right.
And, you know, if there's any issues with their wording or their conclusions or in their discussion, this is when that will come to light. Sometimes it's even as big as, you know what, there was some type of fault in the design, or maybe something wasn't vetted enough in terms of the analysis, like where's the data coming from. And so sometimes researchers actually have to go back into the lab and redo some experiments.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that it's peer reviewed.
Right.
So, and that's why I like PubMed, because everything on there is peer reviewed. They don't put it up there unless it's peer reviewed. The other thing you really want to look for is, and I just had it. Oh, I know. This is a really big one. And most people don't know about this. I would say the research design. Mm. You need to make sure the people who are publishing are going into enough detail that the experiment or whatever the study is can be replicated to the letter.
Right.
And this is where I think people get overwhelmed as they read this materials and methods section, or data collection if it's a meta-analysis or some type of review, and they're like, oh my god, what is going on? Like, I have no idea what these different like cross-sectional studies or like randomized control trials, like what is blinding, like they just, again, this is where language comes in. They're just definitions for how the experiment was put together. Yeah, but it has to be done in such a way that you could go and repeat it. So when I teach at Grant McEwen, I teach for massage therapy students.
Okay.
And when we're looking at some of the massage therapy papers that are coming up, massage is a fantastic complementary medicine, but they have to be able to repeat the techniques exactly. And the same thing for any study. So if you're using instruments, you need to know exactly the instrument, the model. The detail in this section needs to be very deep.
Wow.
And so when you're reading it again, it's like, oh my God, this is kind of boring. Like, why do I need to know, what lot number the vitamins were from? Well, it's because they need to know, the brand, the
potential potency too of the thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like maybe you go back and you find out later that there was an error with that lot number, with that whatever vitamin or whatever it is that you're using. Like all of this has to be vetted out. And then when it comes to statistics, like the math, how is the data collected? How is it analyzed? Because the data they're giving you is not the raw data.
Right.
They've done all of their analysis and all their equations, and they're kind of sifting through everything, and they're giving you the polished stuff.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to replicate everything. So that would be another big alarm to look for when you are reading papers.
Right.
So if they're not giving you enough that you feel that it could be repeated by somebody with the tools, then don't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this one, the last one I would say is looking at the results. You want to make sure that there's a lot of results there. Lots of information, but it's not too complicated to understand. Sometimes scientists, again, they start speaking their own language and they realize not everybody speaks the same language.
Right.
If it is a paper that you're looking at and you're looking at the results, like not just like the written results of, what their interpretations are, but you should be able to look at the results too and figure out, okay, well, if I'm looking at this graph plot, they're saying this is, a huge difference, but it doesn't look like a huge difference to me. That should be an alarm bell to you.
Right.
And you want to make sure it is easy to figure out once you have a little bit of the base knowledge of kind of what you're looking at, how plots work, how graphs work, a little bit about what's significant, what's not. And again, these are skills you can learn and develop. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
You just have to take a little bit of time. So those are the 4 big ones. Yeah, sorry, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think it is an important point to kind of hit home. Sorry, my door just opened. That was creepy. But nobody's home, so I'm like,
Oh.
It's okay, guys. I'm not getting kidnapped. We're in Switzerland, so we're good.
Okay.
It's probably just
nice.
Yes, it is nice here. We're very lucky. But I was gonna say, we have a friend who is he studies, like, he's a mathematician, like, and he's a PhD. And so when COVID hit, he was taking all the stats and like redoing them and being like, yeah, this has the potential to be a lot worse than we're actually making it out to be. And so we were actually looking to him for all the information because he was digging through, and he was like, yeah, this one's not true. This is shit. And this is okay. And, it was interesting I think his background too is in economics too. So he, was making some pretty scary, at the time, some very scary, like warnings about what could happen with the economy. And we're like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
It is important to look to the people that do this for a living, and not just listen to the loudest voice. Often I've heard sayings like, normally the louder you speak, the less you know about the topic. And the quieter ones, they realize there is still more to learn. And so that's why, you should be listening to the quieter voices, because the any topic we're looking at is always more complicated than people realize.
Yes.
The pandemic it's a really, really complicated, dynamic event.
Yeah.
And we're still in the thick of it. And so, we're trying to learn as much as we can as we go. But I think I get the frustration, because I'm frustrated too with all the different mixed messages. Public health officials, they're struggling, and their communication is struggling as a result, and people are getting frustrated. But, what I think the general population has to understand is the science is scrambling to understand what's going on. This is, they keep calling it the novel coronavirus because it's new. This is a totally different strain than anything we've seen. So we don't understand yet. And people are like, well, what's the science saying? Well, it takes a lot of time to put together studies to collect the data. Like you have to get approval. Everything has to be approved by an ethics board.
Yeah.
And then you have to run the experiment. That takes time. And then you have to analyze the experiment. And then you have to, you know, write it up, which takes time, get it peer reviewed, and then get it published. And so, you know, we're not going to know very much right away. Like we know more now in October than we did obviously in like April, May, June.
Yeah.
But you know, 10 years from now, we'll have a much better understanding because of hindsight and because we've had time to look at all of the data. You know, when you're in the middle of an experiment, really, that's kind of what this is. It's hard to see them through the murky waters. You just can't. So yeah, it is hard. It is complicated. It's frustrating.
Well, and it's not even
exhausting.
It's not even just like it's a novel coronavirus either. It's like the first time that the world in this kind of situation with this much connection has ever had a pandemic, so to speak. I mean, other than like the Ebola and the SARS, I just don't feel like they're even on the same level at this point.
No, I mean, neither of those hit a global scale the way that this pandemic is. So, and then, I mean, the closest other pandemic would be the Spanish flu. But again, the world was such a different place then, you know, like officials were just, oh, you got to quarantine. All right, off you go. You didn't have the issues with the economy, with world travel, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other topics I don't even know about yet because this is not my specialty. So yeah, it's a different beast for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you said something else that was really important too, is like you said, the quiet ones are usually the ones who understand that there's more to understand behind the scenes kind of.
Yes.
And, you know, it's funny because when Sean and I always make a recommendation, well, either to our clients or for our own health or for anything that we're studying, we always make sure, like whether it's politics or science or whatever it is, we always study both sides of the spectrum. Like, you know, like with the politics going down in the States, this is a little bit off topic, but with the crazy things going on down there, my oldest son actually lives in the States. So we obviously hear a lot from him. And anyways, I was going to say, like, we're always paying attention to like far right, far left, right in the middle, and forming our opinions like that. And we kind of take the same approach to science as well. Is like, what does this study say? It contradicts this study. Well, why could that potentially be there? And, you know, we took a bit of heat. Well, sometimes we take a bit of heat. There's certain topics that we kind of sit back on, and there's certain ones that we're very like loudly spoken about. But, we do take a bit of heat for being more quiet, and it's just, you know, we have our opinion and sometimes they're actually quite unpopular. And so, you know, it is usually the quiet ones who know quite a bit, but that's kind of our approach to kind of forming an opinion. Would you take the same kind of approach, or is there something that we're missing?
No, I would take the same approach. Everybody's perspective, everybody's life experience, everybody's position in life where they are currently is so different. We're all unique, and we have to understand there's way more to people's behavior and understanding than just what we see. Like even friend to friend, like we don't understand the whole picture. We're seeing a small sliver of their life. You know, so you just really, what I can push more than anything else is don't just blindly follow the loudest person. Do your research, like learn as much as you can about a topic before you make a decision. But even once you've made a decision or you've formed an opinion, realize that there's a very good chance as we learn more about whatever topic you're learning about, your opinion will change. You know, our knowledge of any one topic is constantly evolving. And so we have to really respect other people's opinions and, you know, live your life the best that you feel. Don't push your opinion on me. I won't push my opinion on you. If you ask, we can definitely have a discussion, a respectful discussion about it. But, you know, as you learn more, you have to modify your opinion and your behavior. And a great example of this right now is the whole Black Lives Matter movement. You know, I am a Caucasian Canadian. It wasn't easy growing up. I grew up in a single parent home, but I had lots of family members that loved me, and I had lots of opportunity. I had the opportunity to go to post-secondary education, and I had full support with that. So my perspective is very different than a lot of people of color.
Yeah.
And so, when you hear a lot of people like, oh, I just don't understand why they're so angry, is sometimes what I hear. And I just think, we haven't walked in their shoes. We have no idea what their life story is. Obviously, they're speaking out because they're frustrated and angry. And so our opinion has to evolve as we learn more about the situation. And it's frustrating for everybody right now. Like there's a lot of volatility in our world right now. And I think in general, we need a lot more patience, a lot more love. Maybe that's naive of me, but if you have an opinion, at least be willing to listen to the flip side and be willing to learn. And, your opinion might not change, but at least try and learn more about the topic before you decide to set your feet in cement and keep that opinion.
Yeah. And I think that for me is probably one of the things that frustrated me the most when I was teaching, actually. And I'll be honest, I am exactly on point with you. Somebody's belief is their belief, their experience within that is their experience. And definitely we should not be pushing our opinions onto other people. And I think that honestly was one of the things that I struggled the most with, was students who refused to look at the whole picture, because I was like, we're in a field of, science-based, but also mixed with body, mind, spirit, also mixed with biochemistry, with genetics, and whatever's working for you may not be working for that other person. And if you take that approach of being like a stick in the mud, okay, sure, maybe that's good for your niche in terms of finding your customers, but at the same time, you could be doing something detrimental to somebody's health if you refuse to coach them a different way,